Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Naughty Neighbours. First up we have Nightmare Neighbour caused my relationship to break down and left me no choice but to sell my home, by Short Queen 00. I, 25 female, moved into my beautiful first home around 5 years ago. It's a 3-bedroom terraced house, this is important information for later, in an okay area right at the end of a cul-de-sac street. A couple of years ago, a husband, 31 male, and a wife, 34 female, and their 2 teenage sons moved into the adjoining terraced house next door. Initially, things were good. We were always friendly with each other and would occasionally pop round to each other's houses for a drink in the evenings and on weekends. I quickly came to realize that they are both heavy alcohol and drug users. Weed for him and cocaine for her. This was never a problem. Who am I to judge? I'm judging the cocaine. Until the wife, Stacy, lost her work-from-home job. I wonder why. Following this, she discovered karaoke and TikTok Live, which she would do simultaneously while drinking heavily and taking cocaine way into the early hours of the night, on work nights. There were multiple occasions where I had to call her to ask for the music to be turned off. She came to develop a cycle. She would start drinking, go on the karaoke. She had a speaker on full blast and sounded like a tortured cat. Taking cocaine and then getting emotional and aggressive. All on TikTok Live. But little did I know this was only the beginning. More recently, my now ex-boyfriend, 25 male, moved in with me. We had been dating for about 1.5 years and things were going great. So naturally, it was the logical next step in our relationship. All in all, we had a good relationship, but he did have a tendency to drink too much at times. Nothing major, but the kind of male frontal lobe not fully developed yet stuff you tend to experience in relationships in your 20s. Things were going well until one night my ex and I had been at a do at his family's house, with family as well as, essentially, introduced the parents for the night, and we had arrived home around midnight. He was blathered, and I was painfully sober. I'm not a big drinker. And he told me he wanted to go out in town. I told him I was tired and he was too drunk and started to get ready for bed. Shortly afterwards, Stacy, the chavvy neighbor, started shouting my ex's name through my letterbox. I shouted down, asking if she was okay. And she called me to explain that X had messaged her, asking her to go out with him. I told her he was drunk, to please ignore him and not go out with him, and that we were going to bed. She told me okay, and that she's going out, so I told her to have fun and a safe night. I then heard her outside my house talking on the phone, saying X's name again. Shortly following this, X came upstairs and told me he's going out in town with Stacy. Bear in mind, Stacy and her husband are into a lot of dodgy and illegal stuff. She lives off of benefits, and only has access to 2 out of her 4 children. Yep, you know the type. X was not a fan of her at all, and didn't even like me spending time with her. She was always jealous of me and X, and would often try to butt in if we were ever having quality time together, and would do this by prizing him off me and trying to snog me. Weird, I know. And gross. Bad teeth and major cigarette breath. Going back to the story, I'm ashamed to say I begged him not to go out with her. I told him it was not a good idea. But his mind was made up and there was nothing I could do to stop him, so off he went. She was FaceTiming me throughout the night and they seemed to be getting on well. Eventually, around 3 a.m., she FaceTimed me to let me know she had got them kicked out of a club and they were on their way home, about a 15-minute walk. I was just drifting off to sleep when I got another call around 15 minutes later from Stacy in hysterics, telling me that X tried to put his fingers somewhere he shouldn't have done, So Muggins over here crawled out of bed at 3:30 a.m. in my onesie, bed socks and sliders, and walked into town to find her. I ran into X first and confronted him. He told me categorically nothing happened, that she freaked out and ran off. After a bit of pressing, he admitted that she was walking in front of him and told him she had no knickers on, then pulled them out of her handbag to show him as proof. She then asked for a piggyback as her feet were hurting, and he obliged, despite her being knickerless. But he was adamant that no hands were put in places that could have misrepresented something else. Now, knowing them both well, I don't for a second believe he did S.A. her, and he's not been charged with anything, so it's more likely that something drunken yet mutual happened between them, and it was a case of who could tell their partner quickest to avoid taking the blame. I then walked a little further to find her, and ran into her in some random person's front garden. I hugged her and called her son to come too. She seemed upset, but she very purposefully grabbed my butt and greeted me with a hug, which I thought was odd given the circumstances. X approached and tried to talk to her, which made her freak out. Her son, 15, arrived, and I told her I would take X home and son could take her home, and we could all talk about it in the morning. On the way home, Stacy called me to tell me she had called the police on X. She asked if it would ruin our friendship, to which I answered I wasn't there, so I can't tell her what the right thing to do was. A little after X and I arrived home, Stacy turned up on my driveway and started trying to aggressively break into my house by trying to barge my front door down. I'm talking punching, kicking, banging. It was clear that she was very much sniffed up. X and I had to physically lean against the door to stop it from opening. It hasn't locked right ever since. After asking her to stop a few times, I called the police. They came and arrested her and X. Of course, I didn't sleep. Police came round to take statements. Stacy returned from the police station around 5:30 a.m. Note, Stacy messaged X at 5 a.m. saying, "I'm sorry," which I saw but later deleted the message. And X's car was parked on my drive. She ripped the wiper blades off the car and went ham on the windscreen with them. It was completely messed up. Again, I called the police, and she was arrested and cautioned for criminal damage. I later picked X up from the police station, and he had been placed on bail for SA, and part of his conditions were that he wasn't allowed down our street. So he had to move out, and the relationship was over anyway, due to him going out with her in the first place. I just want to add, you were giving him a bit of a pass earlier in the story for something about his frontal lobe not being fully developed. Your brain is pretty much fully developed in your mid-20s. That whole thing that people like to trot out, in your 20s, your brain's not fully developed. It's not entirely nonsense, but the fact is your brain is essentially fine-tuning right up until your early 30s. That's what people mean when they say that, and that's what people are misrepresenting when they say your brain isn't fully developed. Whatever choices he made there were entirely his, and he's entirely responsible for them. Not because of an underdeveloped brain. In the following week, Stacy would ring my doorbell, try to rip it off the wall, and call me over and over at stupid hours of the night. I ended up having to send her a very polite message along the lines of, "I really care about you as a friend, and sincerely hope you're okay, but I need to take a step back from both sides for now. Take care." That weekend, following the message, she was on TikTok live all night. I mean, that's just evidence, right? Unless she's deleting them afterward. Doing the usual drink, karaoke, cocaine, emotional, aggressive routine, and started talking about smashing my car up. It was parked on my drive. She was saying awful things about me, like I was protecting X. I had cut contact with him completely, and calling me every name under the sun, including a fat cow on Monojaro. I've lost over 5 stone in a year and weigh 9.5 stone. 2 friends came round to sit with me, because I was terrified, and around 3 a.m. Stacy grabbed a knife from her kitchen, hid it in her waistband, and went outside and slashed my car tires. Luckily, it was all caught on my Ring doorbell. Thank God I have one. Take note, people. And I called the police. And she was again arrested and released on bail for harassment and criminal damage, with conditions not to approach my home or contact me in any way. I moved out of my house immediately in with my parents. Throughout the period of her bail, she has been constantly going on TikTok Live and talking about specifics of the case. Make sure you're saving and archiving these videos if you need to refer to them, or that your lawyer is. Saying disgusting and untrue things about me, including at one point saying my full name. Doxing. Not legal. It got to the point where I was so scared to be home. Every time I left work to go to my house and feed my pet bunny, I felt physically sick and would go through a routine of checking my doorbell and TikTok to see if she was there, and drinking she usually was. I wasn't sleeping at night because I was so worried she would damage my property. I became obsessed with watching her TikTok to try to get some kind of heads up if she was going to do something further. It really messed up my mental health. I'm the straightest shooter you'll ever meet. Never ever been in trouble with a teacher at school, let alone the police. The whole thing traumatized me so much that I put my house on the market, and it's currently sold pending completion. I still live with my parents. Stacy had her court date today, and here's the real kicker. All she got for all of that was a £270 fine. What about the cocaine use? That's not legal. She has already been laughing about it on TikTok Live, saying my name, saying vile things about me, joking about how she was drunk in court, and going outside and standing on my driveway with my house and house number in full view of the TikTok Live, because she can now, she can't, it's still doxing. Laughing about me selling my house, it just feels completely unfair. I feel as though I am the only innocent one in this situation. I have done absolutely nothing to aggravate her, yet my whole life has been turned upside down. I've lost my relationship. I know it sucks right now because you obviously cared about this person a lot, but you will eventually get to a point where you realize it's best for both of you, and especially you, that you're no longer together. I really wanted everything with him, a friendship, my home, my independence, and my safety, and my sanity. And she got off with paying £20 a week until she gets to 270. Bear in mind too, I did everything for this woman. I lent her money every month until her benefits came in, drove her places because she didn't drive, helped her look for her husband when he'd go out and go missing early hours of the morning. I was completely there for her physically, emotionally, and financially, and it was always about her. That is always going to be the case with an alcoholic. Again, I speak from experience. You're going to put so much effort into the friendship, and you only ever will get screwed over, unless they get themselves right, but that almost never happens. I honestly can't remember one thing that she did for me that wasn't linked to some personal gain of hers. Anyway, it's all crazy. The system is crazy, and I'm trying to come up with legal ways to mess with her life. I have an incredibly strong moral compass, and after all that she has put me through, £270 just doesn't seem fair. Now, it's not more money I expected, rather than a 6-month suspended sentence, perhaps. Just something to give me some sort of protection and peace of mind whilst my house sale goes through. I can tell by how she's acting and talking about the situation that she's bound to do something else at any second. Brick a window or something similar. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. I'm really struggling right now, so please be kind. You need to start now. I'm not 100% sure if TikTok Lives get saved so they can be viewed later. If they can, you should be able to download them. If not, look into getting a screen recorder app of some kind so you can then record them yourself and save them and then pass them on to the authorities. You're saying she's doing drugs live on stream? That's what's known as a digital high five. I don't know if they use that expression in this country, but essentially what it means is she has recorded evidence on social media about her crimes. That's probably going to be your strongest thing. And as for her in front of your house saying your name, your address, doxing's not illegal. She's broken the law there too. Just keep gathering evidence if you need it, and hopefully you get through this situation. You're able to find a house in a much better neighborhood away from people like her. Best of luck. And second story today is Nightmare Neighbor in Split House by Caden Gaz 134. Me and my family live in the same 3-story house for almost 12 years. The house was renovated years before we moved in to be split, with the first floor and basement being one home and the second and third, which is more of an attic than a floor, being another. The first 5 years we had great neighbours living downstairs. They often babysat me and my sister, but then they moved out and left the country. A new family moved in with, at the time, 1, now 2 children. We have since had problem after problem. The first major fallout happened about 3 years after they moved in. The family owned a dog, which to me made no sense, as the home does not have a garden or backyard, so seems a bit cruel to the dog as it had no space to run in. This is reinforced by the fact that the small patio space around the back of the house, which acts as the entrance to our part of the house, while the main front door is the entrance to theirs, was often covered in dog poo, as the neighbours failed to clean up after the dog and let it run loose in the small patio area regularly. This led to my father confronting the neighbours, in all honesty a not too friendly way, after he stepped in dog poo for the 5th time. Perfectly reasonable not to be friendly in that situation. This led to a screaming match which concluded with a fence being put up in this tiny patio to split it between us. My family did not want this outcome, we just wanted that they cleaned up after themselves. The dog was also clearly not properly trained, as it attacked our cleaner, a small old lady, multiple times, by jumping at her and barking, as well as doing the same to me. Keep in mind I was young, maybe 14 at most at the time. In all the time we've lived there, we've had delivery issues, as couriers often cannot find our door. As said previously, our front door is at the back of the house. With our old neighbours, they simply took the packages and gave them to us, or told couriers to simply go around the back to find the door. These new neighbours took a different approach of simply taking the packages. Then they either simply keep whatever is in there if they decide they like it, I guess, or they will throw them over at our door days after delivery, or worst case, throw them in our garbage. This has led to me choosing package drop-off locations near our home as much as possible, especially following the pandemic, where we started ordering things online a lot more. There have been many other minor incidents. I either have forgotten the details or cannot be bothered to write. I don't know if you're aware of this. You probably are, so ignore it if you are. Many of these delivery places, like Amazon, you can leave special instructions, i.e. you have to go around the back to get to the entrance. Doesn't mean the drivers will pay attention, but you can leave those instructions. Now, we get to why I'm deciding to write this post. As I have said, my neighbours control the basement and first floor, which is crucial as the basement contains a control box and heating systems. 2 years ago, the heating in our home broke at around mid to late October, when it starts to get quite cold. Our landlord, who is a whole other can of worms, is slow to respond for repairs and maintenance, but booked a technician to come and fix the problem. Our neighbour denied entry to their home and hence the basement. Legally, they can't actually do that. I understand they did, but legally they can't, as it's essential work. This issue went on for months, and I do not know in-depth details, as my parents were dealing with the issue. It took almost 3 months to fix the heating. By that point, it was well into January. From what my dad has told me, the neighbours were so problematic that they had to get a legal notice demanding entry to their home in order to access the heating system. Note that the woman is a single mother and a police officer. You think she'd know the law then? But once the issue was fixed, we have only had our usual standard package stealing problems for almost 2 years now, until a few days ago. A few days ago, my parents, whose room is on the 2nd floor, woke up at around 7:30 a.m. to loud noises downstairs, and then 15 minutes later our internet connection stopped working. My room is on the 3rd floor, so I did not hear this. We promptly made an appointment with our service provider, and today the technician came to have a look. He concluded it was an issue with the wiring from our home to the street's internet connection port. I'm not a tech person, and have no idea how that stuff works, but said he needed to discuss the home's internet box, which, you may have guessed, is in the basement. To absolutely no one's surprise, our neighbours refused entry to the technician, and they have now rescheduled to next Monday in 6 days. Our landlord will not help us, as we have had a broken dishwasher and faulty heating again, which they have made no effort to fix. I see a court date in their future. The dishwasher has been broken for almost 8 months. I have done some research and found that our service provider can force access, but that process can take months, all the while we have zero internet access. I'm writing this on my phone with mobile data, which is not going to last me months. My mother has gone to try to talk with them as I'm writing this, but I'm not hopeful. This especially aggravates me, because in almost exactly 4 months, almost 4 months ago, a pipe was leaking in their ceiling, causing water damage. A repairman asked to come in to our home to fix the issue, which of course we allowed. Why can't she give us the same courtesy? This was also with no notice, while we contacted them about the technician prior to his arrival. I'm moving out in January and looking forward to not having to deal with this she-devil living in our basement beyond that point. But as it stands now, I'm sitting at my desk unable to play games with my friends or do anything except watch YouTube on my phone. We cannot prove damage was done by her or her kids right now, as they will not let the repairman in the home, but the timing of the loud noises and the cutoff, along with the extensive past, leaves me and my family to believe they have caused the damage either on purpose or by mistake. I honestly cannot fathom in my mind how someone, especially a police officer, can be so hostile and problematic for almost no reason. Honestly, just picturing her in my mind is making me angry. What would you guys do in our situation? I live in Germany. If anyone has legal knowledge or advice on any action my family could take. My mum works from home, and now will need to make ridiculously long commutes to the office every day instead of once a week. I'm trying to apply to university, which I will now need to go to a friend's house or somewhere else to do. I want to see if there's any way to make them let the technician in next Monday, so we're not left without internet for months. Right, well, I think first up, the obvious is that your landlord is being remiss in their duties, so it might be appropriate to consider contacting representation. I'm not saying that you actually have to, or your family has to take them to court, but it would be worth gathering evidence. Of course, you must always have evidence, and inquiring as to what their legal rights are in this situation. It sounds like no one involved on that side of the fence. Your parents, of course, seem to be operating well within the rules, but it sounds like this police officer lady and the landlord seem to think the rules don't apply to them. They need to be reminded of that. I don't know what the rules are like in Germany, but generally speaking, off-duty police officers are held to quite high standards in codes of conduct in many countries. I'm sure some people watching right now will be thinking, not in my country. Well, theoretically, they are. You may be able to get some sort of ruling compelling her to finally, grow the hell up and allow access to the property for emergency situations, such as getting things repaired. She chose to live in this place like that. She might not like it if she doesn't like having to give access like that. She can move out and go somewhere else. She doesn't have to stay there. She's chosen to. I think legal action is probably the way forward. I would look into the possibility of surveillance cameras if you can. I'm not sure where you'd be able to place them on the property. If you can get a good view well, you're upstairs, so if you can get a good view of delivery drivers, whomever they may be, whatever the delivery companies are from, bringing the packages to you, and oftentimes with these companies, they'll send you a picture when they deliver it, so you'll see where it was delivered to. I think it's very obvious where the packages are going. I mean, that 100%, that is theft. Might be worth a call to internal affairs or whatever the equivalent is in Germany for the police, because that's a dirty cop, is what that is. It's not really a gentle way to put that. They're stealing from a neighbour because they think they can get away with it. They know the law, they're choosing not to obey it. So definitely explore all legal options, I think. Good luck to you and your family. Third story today is Neighbours Demand I Keep My Dogs Inside by Alshide. My next door neighbours moved in about a year ago. We both have front yards, theirs being a bit bigger than mine. Both yards are fenced in, and when weather permits, I work in my porch and my dogs laze around, i.e. sleep and play, but not being disruptive to the peace. That's something we've been doing ever since we came here 4 years ago. Now, my neighbours got a cat about 6 months ago and decided that this cat would be left to come and go. Their cat has made it a habit to get into the pots in my yard. I've spent a great deal of time making that yard mine and my dog's, so the pots contain plants that are dog safe. Even comestible, actually. My dogs will actually stare at the cat and get near it. No chasing, they've been trained not to do that, and the cat will automatically retreat to their own yard. If it's still in my yard when we come out, it will run away as well. I've never chased the cat, nor do I let my dogs out to chase it or do anything to it. Earlier today, when I came back from our morning walk, I found a note from my neighbours demanding I keep my dogs inside because their cat doesn't like them and likes to be in my yard. And whose problem is that? It's not your problem. I went to see them and told them in no uncertain terms that I would not comply with their demands and that my dogs are in their own yard and not attacking nor chasing their cat. Their response? I'm taking my dogs on walks or for training 2 times a day, minimum. They know I take them for hikes during the weekend, so they don't need to be out otherwise. Their cat is mostly outdoors, and it's cruel to me to deprive it from going in my yard, especially since it likes laying down in some of my plants. It's not really cruel, it's your yard and not your cat. I told them to start taking care of their yard and add plants that their cat likes. In return, I got a door slammed in my face with a threat to call animal control on me next time their cat runs into my yard. Call animal control the next time their cat runs into your yard. Now I'm trying to figure out my next move while wondering where in the hell does the entitlement portion they seem to be drinking come from and who produces it? I think it comes out of their buttholes. Right, well, you've already mentioned good stuff you've done in the updates here, like you've changed the angle of your cameras, all that, adding some extra nice plants and such, and possible natural repellents for the kitty cat. Someone suggested leash the cat. Okay, good luck with that. But yeah, as you mentioned, cats have to be contained by their owner. Them threatening to call animal control because their cat's in your yard, yeah, great. They can come take their cat away. It's not the cat's fault. The cat's not been properly trained. But we can't put the owners in the pound. It would be good if we could. But it sounds like you're doing all the right things. I'm sure eventually the problem will sort itself out. Okay, fourth story today is she kept blocking my garage because she felt she could by what name 7. I no longer live there, but she did something else dumb right before I left. The building had a no pet policy. Well, she got a Yorkie because she's above the rules. Maintenance entered her apartment one day for some scheduled work. They informed all the tenants ahead of time. The dog freaked out and bolted out the door when the men entered. It ran out into the street and was hit by a car. Oh. Sadly, it didn't make it. She blamed property management because it wasn't her dog and she was watching it for a friend. I bet she has no friends. Wherever she is now, I'm sure she's blaming someone else for her transgressions. Anyway, the original story. Years ago, I moved into an apartment with individual garages in the alley behind the building. The building had 10 units, 8 studios, and 2 one-bedroom apartments. I had a one-bedroom. The day I was moving in, I met La Cristal. She lived in one of the studios on the opposite end of the building, and she immediately informed me, I park there, referring to in front of my garage. Parking is scarce in that area, and street sweeping is done at odd hours, like 3:30 a.m., so when people find a spot, they don't move until they absolutely have to. They'll Uber places instead of driving. I asked why she didn't park in her own garage, and she stated that she had an old broke-down car in her garage already. Sounds like a her problem. I told her that she needed to find another parking spot, as I leave for work most days at 4 a.m. She then gives me her phone number and says, "Call me and I'll move." Call it a tow truck, more like it. I'm already thinking of all the work I have to do moving in and setting up, so I just say, okay. As not to ruffle any new neighbor's feathers. No, you have to assert dominance right away as you move in. Or, just politely tell them no. That might get better results. Don't listen to me. And I just didn't feel like arguing with someone 5 minutes within moving in. Calling her to move her car started out okay, but quickly turned into be a pain. Who'd have thunk it? There were times I'd call her and 10 minutes later I was still waiting. I'd call again, only to be screamed at with, "I told you I was coming! Damn!" It didn't stop there. There'd be times I'd come home at night and couldn't get in because she'd blocked my garage. It got to the point that I asked her to stop. She wouldn't, causing obstruction. The owner of the property was a buddy and a client of mine, so I eventually told him about it. He then posted signs on the property saying that parking in front of garages would result in the vehicle being towed. Well, one night I came home with my girlfriend and she was in front of my garage. I called her 3 times, and she sent it to voicemail each time. I walked up to her unit and heard her inside talking crap about me calling her. No problem. I called the tow truck and had her car towed. Yay! I left my girlfriend in my place the next morning while I went to work for a few hours. She called me and said La Cristal was standing outside my window on her phone talking loudly. Some bitch-ass who thinks he's something because he lives in a one-bedroom... What? Got my car towed for no reason because he's a bitch. No, darling, I think the reason is because you're a bitch, as are probably most things that happen in your life that you don't like, is what I was told she said. When I got home, she was standing in the courtyard with a devilish grin on her face. She greeted me with a, "Hello, neighbor," like I was supposed to be scared of her. I said, "Hello," back, and went inside. She got on her phone and called someone and continued to talk about me, saying I owe her $300 and I better pay it if I want to keep breathing. And what if you don't? Did she ever consider that? People making assumptions all the time really ticks me off. Grinds my gears, even. The next day, she had a guy, I'm assuming her man, come over to intimidate me. Now, I'm 6'4", 215 pounds. This guy was 6'5", 250 pounds at least. Damn, you might have had to get on your tippy toes. For the next week, anytime I walked outside, he would just come out and give me a menacing stare, probably because it's all he was capable of. I stared back, but no words were ever exchanged. Because the pussy wasn't that good. Well, I didn't pay her jack, and she got towed again a few days later for parking in front of someone else's garage. This time the owner, my buddy, drove by and saw her car and called it in. She was towed at least 2 times after that. Along with a buddy, she had parked in front of someone else's garage. Of course, she thought I had something to do with it. Oh, well, it couldn't be that she's the screw-up. Update. She didn't park in front of her own garage because the building was old with garage doors that extended out before going upward. The door would have hit her car, which wasn't even hers. It belonged to Uber. If she moved further away, she would have been blocking the narrow alley that barely had enough room for one car to drive through. Plus, she's a moron. And the fifth and final story today is neighbor ignores my engagement, my boundaries, and common sense, then blows up my phone at 4 a.m. by Pi Bovril. This person is British. I can tell by the name. I have lived in my apartment for a while now, 3rd floor. The woman who owns the apartment above me came knocking one day because her tenant had been causing problems. She wanted to ask if I had any issues with him. We had a long chat at my door, and at one point I said, "Sorry, I can't invite you in for a coffee, I'm just heading out." You know, just being polite, not actually inviting her in. She asked for my number, and said she'd send me hers just in case. There were more issues with her tenant. That seemed fair enough. The guy had tried to intimidate me once, so it made sense to be able to contact each other. The next day, I'm in my music room playing guitar when there's a knock. I opened the door, and it's her again. She says, "Oh, I heard you playing the Rolling Stones. Was that Wild Horses?" I said, "Yeah," and she goes, "Oh, just marry me now." Damn, you must be good. Whew. Mind you, I had literally told her the day before that I was engaged. Then she asks if I'll teach her 13-year-old daughter guitar. I told her I don't teach guitar. That should have been it, but nope. She started sending me WhatsApp messages, not just about the apartments, just random chit-chat, including frequently asking if I'm still with my partner. I kept my reply short and polite, hoping she'd take the hint. Then one day I'm in my kitchen making coffee, and I see her parents pull into the car park. I've never met them before, though seen them with her in the car park, but now they wave at me like we're old friends. So now I'm wondering what exactly she's been saying about me. And the next random message, I finally told her, "When we spoke, I mentioned I'm engaged. I only gave you my number to discuss apartment issues." She went quiet for about 6 months, then at 4 a.m. I get, "Hey, how are you?" Followed by another at 5:30 a.m. saying, "I'm worried about you. The least you can do is answer your effing phone." At that point I replied, "I'm blocking your number, please don't try to contact me again," and I did. My fiancé was furious, and honestly, I don't blame her. Why did this woman think she was entitled to ignore the fact that I'm engaged because you weren't engaged to her? Entitled to ignore my clear boundaries, entitled to ask for free guitar lessons, and entitled to message me at 4 a.m. months after I had told her to stop. Some people genuinely believe that basic respect and boundaries just don't apply to them. I think the lesson here is that you shouldn't play Rolling Stones songs because it drives the women wild. Maybe just stick to Stairway from Heaven from now on. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. If you would like to support the channel, you of course are not obligated to, but if you'd like to, and get early access to all the videos on Monday, you can do that by signing up for my Patreon page. There is a link for that in the description. Just pay what you feel. It's on a sliding scale. You get early access either way, regardless of what you support. I think that's, merchandise store. We have a merchandise store on Teespring. And you'll also find links to my Discord server and my email address, which is kingofthecities@gmail.com, if you need to contact me for any reason, and various other social medias. Until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourselves. I'm going to go have dinner. Bye-bye. There's a lady who's short, wild horses couldn't drag me away.